Regarding Pondville, indeed, we actually have a whole discussion going on about the future of the entire island planning, spatial development, which falls under my ministry. The vendors in Pondville in particular, we've had a number of discussions about that. We've actually looking at solutions towards that. I've asked my Department of Domain Affairs to provide me a list of those vendors who have rental agreements, because a number of them indeed are not there legally, or they've also built structures illegally on what is permitted within their vending and rental license. One of those in particular, at the beginning of this year, was asked to remove a structure that was built illegally, and it was. So I think what we're busy right now doing is basically making sure that what is allowed is there, who isn't allowed, we begin notification that they don't have a rental agreement and should not be there. And then the phase two is also, as part of the bigger cleanup of Phillipsburg and beautification, is actually to find a solution to how to properly accommodate all vendors. What you notice, indeed correctly so, a number of the vendors, the food stalls on the Pondville, they're actually currently in an area where there's some erosion along the trench that poses not only a hazard to themselves, but also a hazard to our waterways for managing stormwater. So we are diligently working on that. And rest assured, we're going to find a solution where everybody feels included in the process. One of the things we don't want to do is sort of ad hocly take anybody away from their location, because of course it is an economic means for them to survive. But we want to make sure whatever we do is done in a very fair and transparent way. So that's for that. Regarding the backlog of permits, and again, I think this continuous narrative that I'm against development, and I've stated it several times, I think here, the media, the parliament floor, I'm not against development. My family for decades have been in construction development. I could never be against what has been part and parcel of me being able to stand here. What I have stated I'm against is unsustainable development. I think a lot of what you see here and what people complain about is the result of unsustainable development. With regards to a number of the denials, none of the denials have ever been about anything unless it is not permitted. So, for example, if someone if someone is requesting a building permit for an area where it's not allowed, if someone has a request for a building density or what they're doing is hazardous to the environment and the community, it's not going to happen. I understand, of course, that there are a number of persons connected to the construction field, but I cannot in good faith allow construction to happen if then the next question next week will be, Minister, you allow this construction to happen and the Ebenezer Hillside collapsed. So you have to understand there's a balance called sustainable development. When it comes to the idea of denying building permits, that's not the case at all. I'm not the first minister to deny building permits. I won't be the last. I am the first minister to find a balance between what has happened in the past and where we need to go. This also includes, for example, looking at the existing draft zoning laws. We know for a fact, and we've discussed it within the ministry, I'll have a more, I actually coincidentally have a whole discussion about that planned for next week's press briefing. But we do have we're very much aware of the restraints and constraints around space and development. We are looking as well as finalizing our draft zoning. We are going to actually review the existing draft zoning for a number of areas in particular where we see that the existing height levels, for example, 3 or 4 stories, is not necessarily in line with what's happening in and around the area, our population demands, our tourist demands, and essentially the lack of space. We have to find a balance. So again, just to reiterate, I'm never against development. I've never been against development. Some of them are very beautiful developments, be they small or very large condo developments. I think what I'm very much and have for a very long time stressed is the importance of doing it sustainably. Why? I'll give you a prime example. When things don't happen according to plan, they cost government money. We just spent 400,000, almost 500,000 euros to fix a collapsed hillside in Ebenezer because basically there was an issue of the manner in which it was excavated, the lack of retaining wall, cost the taxpayers 20 years later, 500,000 euros. So it's never against development. It's making sure that we do it the right way to save money for other things like healthcare, education. And that's really the bigger picture. So anything that impacts the workers, the construction workers, I understand, but also recognize we're also looking at different solutions to ensure, and we're working very closely with all developers, be they large or small, to actually get them in line with what has to happen. And it's working quite well. All denials that have come thus far have really been those which have been really unacceptable. Environmental standards, health standards, and if really and truly things like if someone wants to be on top of a hill or a ridge, that's also a concern because 10 years later, we might have a erosion issue. So again, I recognize the concerns regarding the denials. Regarding the backlog, we actually, I've addressed this earlier too, the number of permits actually coming out of the ministry remain consistent. What is now in backlog actually is because of the reintroduction of civil works. A number of persons are now basically on pause because civil works permits have now become a very key feature in all developments. Though passed in 2021, there was never a clear outline as to how to apply civil works permits. As I mentioned about 2 or 3 press briefings ago, civil works permits manual is being finalized. We're actually in the phase now of review by the collective teams to have it clear and going forward, the whole entire process, to make it a lot more streamlined. On top of that, we're also working toward the whole digitalization process, because in fact, what you see happening is people submit building permits in very large boxes. They are manually processed. There's a capacity issue. There's also a space management issue, where if you have all these files, chances are documentation is going missing, and with limited capacity. So the backlog is not at all due to anyone sort of not wanting development. It is really managing the fact that we have a very small capacity for a system that doesn't match the reality of St. Martin. Recall that our building code is from 1935. So the timelines within that law, the methodologies within this, how we evaluate building permits, it doesn't match St. Martin 2025. What would once happen in 1935 is a house is built every year. It's a square box with 4 windows. We now have 1 house every hour. So the methodologies have to change. We are addressing within the ministry, and we actually are looking for external support for that. We've investigated different opportunities, possibilities, including even third parties to help us with the backlog. All, of course, in the effort to kind of make it a lot better, because we are aware of the challenges. But indeed, it is something that we're constantly working on. The ministry has even come in at this point on weekends to fill this backlog. But as you can imagine, the second biggest industry in this island is construction. So there is an issue with, there is, of course, a very clear issue of demand versus what we can manage within the ministry currently.
Yes. My name is Kirk Richardson. I've been working at the fire department for 22 years now, which 2 years I serve in the side of repression. Then I move over to what you call PPO. That's prevention, preparation, and education. I know probably most of you don't know what those departments do in the fire department. But the prevention department, which I mostly work in, we are responsible for the safety of all the people that is living on the Dutch side of the island. The same sentiments we have in the prevention department, it boils down to the function book. In the prevention department, for the 19 years that I was there, I self-taught myself prevention. For the past 3 years, we've been doing a course that is medewerker preventie, and a little higher, risicobeheersing, that's on a HBO level. So after all those years that self-teaching myself, I finally get to do a course. And when we sit down and we hear and see the disrespect coming to us, it is really hurtful. All of the big buildings, you have Mullet 14, the towers, even this Parliament building. My advice went on all of these buildings. The hospital we have, the prison, all I sit with experts from all around the world. And here in St. Martin, we self can't get recognized. We are seen as fools. The last letter that we sent stating that we going on a go slow, we hear remarks came that that letter could have never come from the fire department, which shows the ones on the higher level thinks very low of us. Without the function book in place for the prevention department and the rest of the fire department will not function correctly. As I stated, I am the honest one doing my job. And it gets into a time where I will be burnt out. And no one cares. We, along with the ambulance for Carnival, they wanted the grand parade to go ahead, so they came and sit with us. Everything was good because the fire department agreed and ambulance agreed to continue and participate, doing inspections, protecting the citizens on the ambulance side. So everything was smoothed over. We got a meeting, and after that meeting, everything started going back down the hill, like the things that we've been going through for how much years is like every new prime minister come, we get a different story. We had prime ministers that sit the evening worrying, touching the fire department. And we must go out there every day, come to work, and put our best foot forward. With that said, from the section PPO, mostly prevention, we advise on building permits, operation license, hindrance permits, event permits. We give advice to daycare centers, fire safety inspections, fireworks, also in the making of the hurricane passes. So with our go slow, all that will be halted until we are satisfied with the outcome of this go slow.
Thank you guys for coming and giving everyone here your grievances. Everyone here was not aware of some of your grievances and for how long things have been going on. So I thank you for that. In response to Mr. Richardson, I for sure am not one who thinks any of you are fools, because all you guys over there, as well as the Tribune, have information and knowledge that I don't have. So I don't know where that rhetoric come from, but it's definitely unbecoming, because as you state, when something is wrong, you pick up the phone and everybody depends on the knowledge that you guys have. So I, for one, don't think that, and it's crazy for anyone to think that. In regards to what Mr. Illard said, I know he stated that a meeting was supposed to be called on August 6th, and for some reason it was not, it didn't go ahead. When is the next scheduled meeting between the union and government? I was told that one is pending on August 27th. Is that correct? Was that correspondence received? And if so, we hope that that will be a success. That'll be all for now. Thank you.
I don't think people realize how important the fire department and the ambulance personnel are to our country until you find yourself in that situation. Then and only then you will understand what exactly you are going through. Every day when I am going home, there's a house behind my house that is a light blue color, and it sits right behind the trees of my house. And it looks like smoke. And there isn't one day that my heart doesn't beat boom, 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 wondering if it's a fire or it's the house, because you can't tell the difference. I've gotten home and seen the ambulance by my neighbor, bringing him back to life. I thank you. Not once, not twice, but 3 times in the last year, year and a half. So I asked myself the question, how a list of such simple things cannot be dealt with? How much uniforms do you have? We find monies for everything else. We have money for Soul Beach. We have money for this. We have for all kinds of things. But things like this that are important, we cannot find. There isn't one person in here that will work extra for free. So why should we request or play a blind eye when this is done with you? De rechtspositie. Could you imagine reaching the age? I understood that someone left the job, worked over 30 years, and their stuff was not in order. The motivation to continue going needs to be extremely high on your side, gentlemen. It needs to be, because impossible. Me with 7 children would not have been able to do what you guys are doing.
Starting with the words from Mr. Eusebius, keeping your word. A man is only as good as his word. But I'd also like to add to that, be careful with your words. Once said, they can only be forgiven, not forgotten. And it was interesting in April when I had to hear from persons from the ambulance department. I didn't get at that time to speak to anybody from the fire department, to hear about the little remarks and comments that were made during the meeting of the Council of Ministers. Comments like incompetence that was mentioned. Comments like, I got more important things to do. I got to enjoy my carnival. Comments like, I ain't got time for this, and getting up during the meeting and walking off. It's just very interesting to hear ministers since then talk about the people and the civil servants and the importance. But when you had the opportunity to sit down at that time, basically, you fooled them off to ensure that a grant period happened. And I told them that too. I said, hey guys, you know, if you don't hold your ground now, you will end up in a situation you are today. And the persons from the ambulance department told me, yes, Atwell, but at the end, we got to do our job. At the end of the day, we got to make sure that people are taken care of, and we don't want to interrupt the parade, and we're going to have some type of faith. And I believe they had to meet in the next 7 days or so forth, or they were expecting a letter within the coming weeks, and that didn't happen. So yes, I agree.
By the late Dr. Martin Luther King. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. And the other quote goes as follows: no, no, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like the waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Let those quotes resonate. Let it sink in and understand it. I really and truly empathize with you all. You all put me today to reflect. And I might speak in my St. Martin twang in between because you all do not know the amount. You can't see the goosebumps. You can't see the emotions of how I felt listening to you all today. And I'll explain why. I didn't knew about the action that took place, or what was going to take place today. I didn't know nothing about it. But just a few seconds before, while our session began over the GB situation, I literally, just before you all arrived to this honorable institution, I literally thank all civil servants for their service, because I know how it is to be a servant to the people of this country, and often we are overlooked. Many of us maybe here in Parliament have sat in the civil service as well, but I don't recall none of the other members being part of the emergency service. But I was also part of the emergency service as a police officer, a detective, that worked long and crazy hours. So who feels it, knows it. There should never be a price tag on life. But to risk your life for the salaries that we earn as emergency workers is disrespectful and without thought for all the tasks that emergency services have to be executed. Again, I'm telling you all put me to reflect. I joined the service on the 15th of June, 2007. That's 18 years ago, with 2,231 guilders. 2,231 guilders at the age of 20. And a young man that got about 5 children in his 20s to take care of.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social health insurances.
The Ministry of Vromi, Department of Infrastructure Management, together with the Police Department, KPSM, is making changes to traffic on a section of Canagita Street and Manzanella Stake, Phillipsburg. The Canagita Street from the intersection with Percy LaBega Street to Manzanella Stake will now be a one-way street. Inbound traffic can enter Canagita Street from Percy LaBega Street and drive straight ahead or turn left into Manzanella Stake. Outbound traffic leaving town on Canagita Street must make a right turn onto Manzanella Stake. Entry further into the Canagita Street will no longer be permitted. Outbound traffic exiting Manzanella Stake onto Walter Nisbet Road can either make a right or left-hand turn. The Ministry of Vromi, Department of Infrastructure Management, and the Police Department would like to thank the public for their attention to this change. Please follow the new traffic rules and signage and drive safely.
(24/7) TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
As mentioned previously, there are 18,927 residential connections to the grid in total. Next to that, of course, you have the commercial sector, but that is exclusive. I'm talking now about the residents, the domestic clients to the grid. That is 18,927. While GB's existing and intended relief measures will provide relief for the most vulnerable, with that 50,000 Caribbean guilders per month, we must continue to acknowledge the growing pressure on across the board for all the households. It is for this reason that government is doing what it can to extend support in a structural and responsible way. After doing all my homework about TOT, about throughput, about concession fee, about a negative positioning of the supervisory board for a reduction in the fuel clause, I'm still trying to see what more can I do to bring relief to the people of this country. And of course, I want a structural solution for this. All the relief that I spoke of until now is not a relief that has consequences across the border and thus touch the finance of all the households. The concept under development that I think government now, after exploring all these possibilities, is a household-based subsidy. Remember, there is a lot going on. It takes time to explore all the options that everybody is speaking about. And until today, what we have achieved until now is the 50,000 guilders per month. And I'm still realizing, and I focused on the fuel clause recommendation, and I'm not getting through until now with that. But it's not forgotten yet.
Chair, in reference to the 50,000 via social services that the Prime Minister is making reference to, in the article from the Supervisory Board of GEBE, they stated that the social assistance in collaboration with social services department to an amount of 600,000 annually, that's the 50,000 monthly, to the most vulnerable, and that the government was asked to contribute by matching the amount, but they have not heard any feedback as yet. In the Prime Minister's presentation, I haven't heard anything of that. So if the Prime Minister could allude a bit more on what their answer is or was or is going to be, that would be much helpful in understanding all the steps taken up until now. Thank you.
The interruption just now by MP York, the following. MP York, the initiative that came is from GEBE. They have the prerogative to do that. And they came to the conclusion that they're going to do it for 50,000 per month, being 600,000 per year, 50 times 12. Perfect. I sent them a letter acknowledging what they're doing. But what you must not forget, the suffering is not only the vulnerable group, it's across the board, the hard-working firemen, the nurses in our hospital, the teachers, all are being encountered with this. That's why we came with this proposal, because we thought if we double up on the 600,000, still we are still focusing only to the 250 customers, while we should do something now across the board. And to do that, realizing that this group is already helped with the 600,000 being 250 households that is selected through a criteria, we thought next to that group that is taking care a bit already of, what can we do now for the group just above that vulnerable group? As I said, the nurses, the firemen, the police officer, we know that these hardworking people are struggling too. If I double up with the 600,000, I don't have no flexibility to do anything else for the rest of the society that is suffering too. That's why we chose not to double up on the 600,000, and we decided what can we do, because something is being done already for the vulnerable group, what can we do for the group just above this selected group that GB is going to do in collaboration with Social Service Department. That is the reason that we did not double up, because we knew we had to do something for the rest too. And if we throw the 600,000, we don't have any financial space to accommodate the others that are suffering too.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, in reference to what the Prime Minister just said about the household subsidy, the Prime Minister also alluded to the fact that there are 18,000 plus households connected to the grid of GEBE. And I remember months ago when seniors were being cut, the answer from GEBE was, we cannot identify, we do not know who the seniors are in the system to know that this is a senior household, not to cut it. And now I'm understanding with this household subsidy that is for the hard working class. So I would like to know, how is the hard working class being defined, and how is that going to be identified in that 18,000? Because it's easy to say the hard working class, but the working class is identified how, and how is it being categorized, and how is that going to be identified in a system that already cannot identify seniors? Thank you.
Have the authority to allow the interruptions, but I just want to make sure that we don't cross the line of asking questions like we would after the presentation of this. I know it's a thin line to walk, but again, brief. You can make an assertion, you can say you don't agree with the way it was explained, whatever, but it can go over to basically asking questions. That's why we have the rounds of Parliament. Prime Minister, you may continue.
Madam Chair, I understand your statement. Just for clarity's sake, that is the reason that we put it to start in December, because this is a new development going on. We have to set the criteria, the working class, how we define it, what is maximum as or minimum, maximum as income to be able to make use of this gesture from government. So we are now in the phase of structuring and working it out. We must be mindful that this relief will be done using public funds, and as such, government must ensure that they are used responsible, and that's why we are focusing to see if we can start doing this as of December, if we manage to get this organization going. We as a government are committed to standing with the people of St. Martin during difficult times while ensuring transparency, responsibility, and accountability in every measure that we take.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah, your social health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, comm programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
Opposition leader and PNP President Mark Golding, addressing a mass rally in central Manchester Sunday night, declared that a PNP government would raise the income tax threshold. That means thousands of Jamaicans earning below that amount would not pay any income tax. Mr. Golding argued that his plan would bring much-needed relief to working-class Jamaicans who are struggling to make ends meet.
Under the PNP government that is to come, we will be increasing the tax threshold so that persons who currently pay tax at 25%, if they're earning up to $3.5 million a year, they will be paying tax at 0%. Under the next PNP government, we will be raising the threshold to give them a tax-free income.
But in St. James, Prime Minister Andrew Holness delivered his own counterpunch. He told JLP supporters that his administration, if given a third term, would gradually slash the personal income tax rate.
Over time, we will reduce the base rate of personal income tax from 25% to 15% on a phased basis and shift gradually from direct to indirect taxation, which will allow hard-working Jamaicans to keep more of their paycheck.
Currently, Jamaicans pay 25% on annual taxable income, while those earning above $6 million are taxed at 30%.
I hear the Labour rights are talking about adjusting the rate of income tax. But that is going to benefit those who are very, very wealthy more than it will benefit those who are less wealthy. Because the rate, once reduced for them, means that they will be paying less tax because they're earning more to begin with. We are going to deal with that matter in a way that benefits those who need it most.
When you do the income tax threshold, you have to be careful that you don't ask the person who is not working to pay more tax, while the person who is working pays less tax. You have to be careful. So you have to do it in a way that is balanced.
However, whichever plan is chosen by the electorate come September 3, the government will face tough questions about how to balance revenue with demands for public services. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The Jamaica Labour Party has promised to provide a grant to university students who are in good standing with the Student Loan Bureau if it forms the next government. The announcement was made by Finance Minister Favour Williams Sunday night in Montego Bay, St. James, where the JLP officially launched its manifesto ahead of the upcoming general election. Mrs. Williams said the grant is aimed at easing the financial burden on tertiary students and encouraging more young Jamaicans to pursue higher education.
We will be given a one-time annual grant of $100,000 to our students who are in good standing with their student loans. And we're doing this because we understand that many parents have been struggling to help their children through college.
The minister further noted that the $100,000 grant can be used in multiple ways.
The $100,000 to reduce the loan balance or use it to cover the cost of a laptop or books or use it to help to cover general living expenses.
On Friday, the Jamaica Labour Party took its campaign activities to Hanover, seemingly a part of the party's strategy to hold on to both hotly contested constituencies in the parish.
There is a conventional thinking that there are some seats that are traditionally seats that the PNP had held, and that the pandemic would have somehow changed the voting pattern, which would lead to an anomalous situation where those seats that were traditionally held by the PNP were held now by the Jamaica Labour Party. I think that level of thinking has to be scrutinized very carefully. There is going to be some significant surprises.
For instance, the People's National Party has been looking to reclaim power in Western Hanover, which has proven to be a PNP stronghold for decades. But in 2020, the JLP's Tamika Davis broke the PNP's 30-year streak in the constituency.
There are seats that the PNP think that may come back to them, that those seats are going to be firmly rooted in the column of the Jamaica Labour Party. Because the truth is, the constituents there would have seen the work of the Member of Parliament and compare the work of the Member of Parliament to the previous PNP Members of Parliament, and would have to conclude that those MPs have worked very hard. As in Western Hanover, you would see that the MP that held the seat for the Jamaica Labour Party for 5 years would have done far more work than the PNP MP previously who held it for 30 years.
Kelisha Williams, TVJ News.
The race is on, and according to the experts, it's too close to call. In the latest Don Anderson polls conducted between August 2 and 11, respondents were asked, if the election were called no, which party would you vote for? 35% the PNP, 34% the JLP, 14% are still not sure, and 17% of respondents say they're not planning to vote. But in an interview with TVJ News on Thursday, the PNP's Peter Bunting provided a different perspective.
At the end of the day, it's not the national polls, it's a seat by seat. And when I have visited seats that haven't been traditional battleground seats, seats that were considered the safer JLP seats, seats like Northeast Manchester, seats like South Trelawney, seats like Southwest St. Anne, even seats like Northwest St. Elizabeth, the response that I see there has quite frankly shocked me, because I did not know that the PNP had this underlying base of support in those constituencies.
Mr. Bunting, who is also the PNP's candidate for Southern Manchester, has been critical of the government's handling of crime. The JLP is critical of him for moving from one constituency to another after his 2020 election loss. The JLP also pulling all the stops to ensure he's defeated in the upcoming polls. JLP's leader, Dr. Andrew Holness, is confident in his candidate, Ian Ives. But for Mr. Bunting,
we have not seen a strong response to the Prime Minister's visit. I've said, he was wandering around Manchester and South Manchester in particular into the wee hours of the morning, like a lost soul, literally. It sort of gave a sort of ragtag or chaka-chaka appearance for a Prime Minister to rush into a seat the day after nomination. Clearly, it is the priority seat, and it is the sort of privileged position I'm accustomed to. I enjoyed that in 2011, and pretty much every election, the Jamaica Labour Party seems to focus on me.
Mr. Bunting is not only confident of his victory, but also the PNP's.
I would say the energy on the ground now far exceeds that in 2011 when we won 42 seats. So it would not surprise me if that's in the range of seats that we ended up with this time.